Today on Crafty Brewers.
You have released about 220 different beers in your career, but you're still looking for new styles. How many more styles can there be?
Nathan and I and Fred were sitting around a table sampling porters, and they were all terrible. And we all looked at each other, were like, maybe we should think of something else. And Nathan said, I got an idea.
This doesn't taste like a 7% ABV
No.
beer either. If you had poured me a full pint glass, it would be gone by now.
Him and I and my wife were camping out in West Yellowstone, and we had a bear encounter.
Oh.
And it was,
Welcome to Crafty Brewers, Tales Behind Craft Beer, the podcast that will increase your enjoyment of craft beer and your admiration for the people who make it. Be sure to stick around to the end of the episode because tonight we will debut a brand new feature, The Final Toast. Today we have traveled to Woodridge, Illinois to go from grain to glass with Ed Ranquist and Nathan Tertell. Ed is the owner and Nathan is the head brewer here at Ike Oak Brewing Company. We're going to share the stories that make each brewer unique. I'm beer drinker and Hellraiser Brian Noonan. All my opinions are strictly my own for good reason. Behind the camera is our executive producer, Cody Goff. Cody, what are you excited about today?
I'm excited because we're going to find out why when you say something is hoppy, that might not mean what you think it means. What's the difference between a West Coast IPA and an English-style pale ale? Where did the bear come from in Ike and Oak's logo? And was it a nice bear or a mean bear? And as the sun sets on this beautiful, luminous brewery while we record the episode, how good, really, are Cody's video editing skills to keep it looking normal and consistent? Thank God this is a podcast. At least you know the audio will sound perfect. Back to you, Brian.
Thanks, Cody. So yes, we are at Ike Oak Brewing Company in Woodridge, Illinois. It is a western suburb of Chicago. The brewery opened in 2019. They are also not only an on-site craft brewery, they are a restaurant with artisan pizzas and all sorts of delicious food. And I am very happy to have you guys here. Thank you, Ed, for being here. Thank you, Nathan, for being here. We are here. I don't want people to think that you're struggling. You are closed tonight when we are, boy, they're at a big place. So yes, we're here on a closed night. I want to start, Nathan, with you because one, you look terrified. And two, I watch you, it was funny. We met the other night at Beer Under Glass. I know this is going to come out later. Beer Under Glass is the big event that kicks off Illinois Craft Beer Week. It's a great event. Breweries from all over the state come together. Ike Oak Brewing Company was there. And you said, hey, I know you. I'm going to be on the show. And we talked and you said, I know you don't like sours, but you should, because I said, what should I try from what you were pouring? And you gave me a sour. And again, I was proven wrong that perhaps just like my militant stance on ciders up until now, my stance on sours is softening. What were you pouring and what made that sour so palatable to a guy like me?
Hey, Brian. First off, thanks so much for coming out to Ike and Oak, and we're really happy to be on your show.
Oh,
and to answer your question, so you were drinking a Jelly Bean Forest, which is a raspberry sour ale.
Ooh, it was really good. And what I liked about it was that, yes, there was a sour note to it, but it wasn't to the point where I wanted to just, suck the insides out of my mouth. And the raspberry really came through. That was the first thing that hit me was, oh, wow, I can really taste these raspberries. And so that sold me because then the tartness and the sourness was right there, but it wasn't overpowering.
Yeah, I tried to give it a nice balance. So it's got some sweetness, some tartness, but it's not puckery.
So when you're doing something like this, and Ed, you weigh in on this as well, when you're making a beer like that could, in lesser hands than yours, go either way, what's the trick of getting it just to the point? How much input do you get from Ed? How much do you try and sample here before you actually say, okay, we got the recipe nailed down?
Yeah, I'll input on that too. So I've been using, it's actually yogurt that I use to sour the beer.
Really?
And it sounds crazy, but so I'll pitch the yogurt into the wort, and usually I'll do that on a Friday and let it sit over the weekend. And then so I can measure the pH, and that'll tell me kind of how much souring's been done.
Okay.
And so if I let it go for more days, then it'll give it more sourness. Or if I then heat it to kill the culture to then stop the sourness. That's kind of how I can hone it in.
What is it about yogurt that does that?
Yeah, so when you look at a pack of yogurt, it says live and active cultures.
Yeah.
So those
I always thought that was just advertising BS.
Right, and if you look closer at the package, it'll say lactobacillus such and such. So there's multiple strains of the active cultures in there, and those are what add the sourness to yogurt and also to beer in this case.
Really? What? Now, I have not. We've talked to a lot of brewers. I haven't heard the yogurt trick before. What usually sours up a beer?
Right. So I've also tried from Omega Labs. I buy most of my yeast from there, so I can buy a lacto blend from them, which has
so
some of the similar cultures in there.
Okay.
But the yogurt adds kind of its own flavor element too.
So you just go to Costco and get big tubs of it? And
Jewel.
Jewel? Just have Jewel right around the corner?
I think another thing that's important is we use all natural fruit purees.
That's a big,
which doesn't add a ton of sugar, but gives it just a really big bowl of flavors.
Well, that was like I said, you really tasted the raspberry. And there's been other times where I've tried, and not even a sour, just beers that are supposed to have fruit. And you're like, I'm not really getting that fruit. But with the raspberry, it really did. Ed, are you ever frightened when you hear Nathan start talking about lactobacillus strains in yogurt? Do you ever just go, well, I'm glad you're the brewer. Go over and do your thing.
Pretty much. I just let Nathan do what he does best. I'm not a sour guy either, but we have a resident sour expert, which is Nathan's wife. And so she's kind of our sounding board on all things sour.
Okay.
He'll bring her home some flavor combinations, bring her home a sample of something, and we find out how whether she likes it or not. It's going to be a big hit. So I think the raspberry jelly bean forest, which is one of our forest series. All of our sours come from our forest series, named after some forest around the country or even around the world. So I think, Nathan, you can maybe add
definitely.
Add on that,
so when she tasted that, I brought her home a sample of the jelly bean beer before it was released to the public.
It's a perk of being married to a brewer for sure.
And she said, "Oh my God, this is incredible. This is the best one." And I've had probably maybe 20 or more sours here, but she said, "Oh, that's
the
and
one."
At some point, because when I bring home beers frequently, it's at some point she can't see everyone's the best, right?
Right, exactly.
But when she said it was actually the best this time, I kind of believed her. So.
Now, did that hurt your feelings at all that she had lied to you up until this point?
Right. That's a tough one. But, we got some great feedback on this beer at Beer Under Glass, and the keg was gone in less than half the time of the fest. So
that's excellent.
It was successful.
We're going to get, because you have a new one that came out today, or it's coming out this week. It was done today. But before we get to that, Ed, give us a little history. What's the timeline? I mentioned at the beginning that Ike Oak opened in 2019, but tell us why Woodridge and how you came to be here.
So I was in a different profession for about 20 years, but always a big fan of craft beer. I'm more of a European style craft beer fan. And I wanted to have a career change back in 2018, and I made a fateful trip to Denver. And the original business plan was going to be a craft beer gastropub, something small, easy to manage. I've never been in the restaurant business before, nor have I ever been in the craft beer business. And
well, then jump right into a huge thing.
After my trip to Denver, which has an incredible craft beer scene, and probably the second best brewpub scene in the country, I would say, after Chicago. I came home and I said, I'm rewriting the business plan, and it's going to be a brew pub. Nice. So I started investing a lot of time and effort into learning the restaurant business. I hired an incredible consulting group called Folk Art. They also run Old Irving in Chicago. They did an incredible job and helped me along in the process from the design to the build to pouring the first beer. Helped me hire Nathan, and they were vital along the way. But it turned into I'm from the western suburbs. I've lived in Naperville and Downers Grove for about 25 years, raised my family there. And Woodridge was an area where there wasn't a lot of brew pubs. There wasn't a lot of breweries. Skeleton Key is the only brewery in Woodridge, which is an incredible brewery. But there's no brew pubs. So I felt like there was a potential location opportunity in the Woodridge, Lisle area, still to be able to draw people from Naperville, Downers Grove, and the western suburbs in general. So started looking at real estate, found this building, and it took from start to finish, it took about 13 months to gut rehab it, do everything we needed to do, put the brewery in. And we opened on the first week of February, 2019.
Now, when you were looking and working with the consulting group and you're interviewing brewers, what was it about Nathan that made you go, yeah, this is the guy that we need to bring in?
That's a good story. It came down to two guys in the final interview process. And obviously I settled on Nathan, and he's been with me since day one. He commissioned the brewery, helped build the brewery, helped, everything to do with the brewery since even before we opened back in October of 2018. But the reason I settled on Nathan was it was a second interview, I think, right? Second or third interview. And he actually brought some samples of his homebrews with him to the interview. And we cracked beers and we sampled beers during the interview. And after that, I was like, well, obviously he's passionate about beer. If you have the smarts to bring beer that you brewed, to
and the
showcase
I know what I'm doing.
And put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly.
Right?
To be able to showcase his techniques, it was it was a easy decision after that. And, it's interesting with Nathan's background. I said, he's got big beer experience. Mm-hmm. He's been trained by the best of the best. He's got small brewery experience where he had to be the jack of all trades and kind of fit the ability to say, okay, what is Ike Oak going to do? We're going to be a brew pub and we're going to produce 12 or 14 beers on tap at a time. I need a guy that can be the jack of all trades.
So let's touch on that since Ed brought it up. You started at Two Brothers, which is a pretty good-sized brewery. Then you went to Lagunitas, and you were one of the first 6 brewers when they opened the Chicago location, then Beta Brau, and then here. So you have been in big breweries. You came to and helped create this 10-barrel system here at Ike Oak. What are the pros and cons of going from something big to something smaller and more, like Ed said, you've got a lot of beers on tap all the time. So what's the difference, and what makes this kind of thing something that you were interested in?
Yeah, very, very good question. So I started out as a home brewer way back in the day. Yeah. In 2009, my wife gave me a home brewing kit for Christmas.
Nice.
And to answer your question more, going from the big breweries to a smaller place like this, I mean, the main reason it was so attractive to me to come to a place like this is having the flexibility to make smaller batches of beer that are going to be, obviously drank quicker than if they're brewing just huge batches of beer and you don't have a way to sell them, right? And kind of it being a smaller operation too, it gives me flexibility as far as my personal schedule too. So my wife is a lieutenant for the Chicago Fire Department. She works 24-hour shifts. We've got 2 kids. So I'm able to make my own, work schedule here, so I can be able to get to the kids at school, pick them up from school, and
nice.
I can be here longer days to, knock out a lot of beer when I need to.
Very good.
There's some days where I might not see Nathan we might just be passing from, coming and going, because he might have started at midnight after the restaurant closed. He might come in and brew from midnight until 6 a.m. to be able to work around his family schedule.
That makes sense.
I think it adds a lot of flexibility, and being the brewery being a big part of the restaurant. Sometimes it's better that guests and employees aren't in the building when he's brewing.
That's another messy job.
Another good point too, in that a lot of the breweries that you go into, you'll see a glass wall between where the brewing equipment is and where the guests are.
Right.
But here it's open. It's
right
there. So in that case, it could be dangerous if there's bartenders, servers, or guests 5 feet away from me when I've got some very hot liquid being pumped right through a hose or something like that. So.
But it is, if you got to come out to Ike Oak in Woodridge. It's IkeandOakBrewing.com, by the way, is the website. But the the brew house is right here. You see it right behind us. There's nothing between, there's the bar, there's the taps, and there's the tanks, and they go down. So it's a very unique setup. Let's go. I got to go back because as Ed was telling the story about you bringing the beer to the interview, do you remember what you brought, and did any of those make the cut to when Ike Oak opened?
That beer was actually beer that I brewed when I was a brewmaster at Baderbrow.
Okay.
And one of those beers that I brought was named Fruit Tsunami at Baderbrow, and it had some passion fruit green tea in it.
Ooh.
And I do brew a passion fruit green tea beer here at Ike Oak, and it's named Broken Carabiner.
Yes, all right.
And that was actually one of my home brewing recipes from about 2010 or so when I was working at Two Brothers at the time.
Okay.
And it was very well received. But it's funny because the first time I used the tea for home brewing the beer, I bought, a little box of tea with the little tiny bags in it. And I, snipped them open, right? And it was only, 20 bags, right? So it was very manageable. But it's not quite so manageable on a much larger scale here when I'm brewing 310 gallons of beer compared to 5
So how much
gallons
tea does that take?
So it's about 20 pounds of dry tea that I put in a batch. And I found a manufacturer that can sell me a bulk amount of loose tea. Wow. So I don't have to snip the little bags over, right?
That would be very time consuming. Just sit at the bar, snipping.
But actually, it took some legwork to find the right supplier for the tea. I had reached out to Lipton at some point, and they said, "Sure, we can sell you some tea, but you need to order a minimum of 10,000 pounds of it." I'm like, "Okay,
that's much.
Thanks, anyways."
Did you explain? Listen, we're not that big. We're we're big enough, but not that big. I want to talk about. If you come into Ike Oak, which you definitely should, there's a wall of awards. Now, Ed, you said you knew Nathan was the guy. As the owner of the business, obviously there's pride when your beers win awards. But in the real, what does it mean as far as attracting people and getting people in? Because the big centerpiece was something that you won in 2024 at FOBAB. There's a lot of there's a million awards back there. What does it mean as the owner of the place to have your brewer winning this many awards?
Well, I think it's really important to be able to validate his craft. He's brewed over 200 different varieties of beers. I don't know, maybe 50 styles. He would probably know better. But it's important to validate whether, we know what our guests like.
Right.
We know they like variety. We always have 12 beers on tap from light to dark and everything in between. And so we know what they like. We get great feedback from guests and from regulars. We have a really strong regular clientele. And so we get great feedback, but it's also important to validate his brewing with, by the professionals at different festivals. So Nathan and we enter beer on East Coast festivals, Midwest festivals, and West Coast festivals to try to gauge not only seeing what a new trend might be, but also to validate how well some of his brews are. And a lot of them are one-offs. Okay. We've won some great awards and we only brewed that beer once. Now later on, now going into our 6th year, we're starting to bring back some brews that maybe we brewed in 2019 or 2020 or 2021. And Nathan and I will discuss the tap list and discuss the brewing schedule. And we'll kind of look, Nathan will mention, that beer won an award back in 2020. So I think it's important for him to say, okay, am I brewing it to style? Mm-hmm. Am I brewing it to what people like? Is the flavor profile, something that's going to be appetizing because we're a restaurant too,
Sure.
The restaurant is 50% of the business. So we've got to make sure that it's not only, that Vienna Lager is spot on to what a real Vienna Lager should taste like, but also does it pair well with a pizza, or does it pair well with cheese curds, or
I would say yes.
or a burger. So I think it's important, and Nathan takes a lot lot of pride in the awards. We spend a lot of time and effort getting him framed and showcasing. We've created a wall of fame, so to speak.
It's
and
very
I think
cool.
it's important for people to walk in and be, nobody knows what this festival of beers that was in, Stanford, Connecticut, but they look at it and say, shit, that beer must be good because it won an award.
Yeah, they must know what they're doing because they've got it. All right, let's get to this because it was one of the things that I read, and Ed just alluded to it. You said that you have released about 220 different beers in your career, but you're still looking for new styles. How many more styles can there be? And is it in the 220? Like, how many styles were that, and what percentage was? This is a lager, but I've made these adjustments and this kind of thing.
Yeah, very good question. So there's the BJCP, so the Beer Judging Certification Program, and they're going to have a list of beers that their judges know how to rate on. So maybe there's 100 beers, on that list. But there's other lists too, right? And then people are kind of, making new styles or hybrids of styles, right? And then additionally, out of those 220 beers, maybe 25 of them were different flavors of hazy IPAs that I made, right? So I don't know exactly how many actual of the styles on the list of 100 I've made from BJCP, but I've made a lot of different beers of a lot of different styles and different flavors of different styles too. But if I look at a list of 100, well-known styles, I haven't made all of them yet. So there's definitely some that are on my list, and I'm always, looking at those lists again to, I didn't want to brew this, 2 years ago, but now I need something else to brew, so I'm going to brew it. So,
how much thought then goes into, as Ed was saying, any brewer wants beer that people are going to drink. That's to brew something that nobody's going to drink is crazy. But as you look at that list and you decide, okay, this is a style I haven't made yet, I want to make it. What goes into saying, all right, yes, I want to make it. I think it'll be good. Then I think it'll go with, it'll complement some of the things we're doing in the restaurant. Where do you find the balance of that?
Yeah, so when I'm looking at making a new recipe, I'm going to look at multiple resources. I've got at least a handful of different books on recipes, and I'll look online at different resources on there too. And then I can make batches between 20 barrels is the kind of the biggest tank we've got here, and the smallest batch I've made on our big system is about 4 barrels. Wow. So if I'm making just a 4-barrel batch, then that'll go relatively quick here at the restaurant. So I don't have to be all that concerned that it's not going to sell, because we haven't had that problem, fortunately.
Yeah, that you mentioned the flexibility that you had before. When you have the ability to brew a small batch, do you feel the freedom to say, I think this is going to be good, and if not, if it's not a huge hit, it's 4 barrels. Ed's not gonna go, oh my God, what the hell are you doing?
Well, and to kind of put things in perspective. So when I started out as a homebrewer, it was 5-gallon batches, right? Okay. And then so the standard batch size we have here at Ike Oak is 10 barrels. But I can kind of manipulate the batch size and make it down to 4 barrels. But when I was working at Lagunitas, our brewhouse size was 250 barrels. And our fermenters were 750 barrels, and we brewed around the clock. So I would literally brew 750 barrels of beer in one shift, which is more than I'll brew here in a year at Ike Oak.
Holy cow, that's amazing. Ed Ranquist is the owner of Ike Oak Brewing Company, and Nathan Tertell is the head brewer here at Ike Oak. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have Brewer's Choice and sample one of the beers that they're very excited about here at Ike Oak. We are back at Ike Oak Brewing Company in Woodridge, Illinois. IkeOakBrewing.com is the website. Ed Ranquist is the owner here at Ike Oak, and Nathan Tertell is the head brewer. All right, I asked you the hardest question you can ask a brewer. Pick a beer that you want to showcase. So, of course, you couldn't pick one. You picked 2, which is great. And, Ed, you were saying that you have 12 beers on tap all the time. 6 of them are the core beers. Which are the 6 that are the core beers?
Our 6 core beers kind of go from light to dark, and they're all super approachable. Really, really fantastic brews. We have on the lighter scale, we have a Kolsch, which has been one of our signature beers from pretty much the first 6 months we were open. We have that one's called Gold Hill. We have a West Coast IPA called Hopper Dropper. Those are our 2 most popular beers.
Okay.
We have a double New England IPA called Mount Massive that we have showcased right here.
And right here.
Oh, and right here.
And
well,
right
let's
here. Cheers.
Cheers.
Then we have Broken Carabiner, which we talked about earlier. That's Nathan's take on a pale ale brewed with some passion fruit green tea. We also have a peanut butter porter, which is called Monkey Nut. And there's a quick little funny story about Monkey Nut. It was named by my brother-in-law, Fred, who was our marketing manager at the time. But the funny story about the porter was Nathan said, "Hey, I think we should," as we were building the tap list pre-open back in the winter of 2018, said, "I think we should have a dark beer." I said, "Okay, great." Mm-hmm. So we started sampling beers, and I said, how about the theme of the restaurant? The theme of Ike Oak is kind of an outdoor theme, hunting, camping, fishing. Those are my passions. And I said, how about like a campfire s'mores beer?
Ooh.
He's like, yeah, I think I can do something like that. So we started taste testing. We had the batch of porter brewed right before we opened. We started flavoring, and Nathan and I and Fred were sitting around a table sampling porters and all different varieties of a campfire s'mores, and they were all terrible. And we all looked at each other, were like, maybe we should think of something else. And Nathan said, I got an idea. I just got this really cool sample of this peanut butter extract. It doesn't have any allergens to it, so it could be approachable for everybody. He dosed it and poured us a little sample, and literally all 3 of us looked at each other and were like, wow, that's fantastic.
So what was it about the porter that was it the porter issue, or was it marshmallow, chocolate, and graham cracker?
Yes.
Flavors it.
Personally,
what made the s'mores would not happen?
I've never been a s'mores fan. I'm the guy when I was a kid that I'd love to make them and, burn them for, make them for somebody else. And I'd like to eat the ingredients individually, have a marshmallow and have the candy bar and a graham cracker. I don't like a s'more together though, but just something about when we were having those ingredients mixed with this beer, it seemed kind of off.
Didn't work. Well, let's talk about Mount Massive a little bit. You said this is a double New England IPA, or
yeah, double. Yeah. So it's
what does that mean exactly for people who don't know?
Right. So it's got double the hops of a typical New England IPA, and in this case, it's Citra and Mosaic hops, and this one rings in at 8.1% ABV.
Wow. And I'll let you take your sip. I know we've talked about this before, but I'm always forgetting, and I know people who might be joining us for the first time. What makes a New England IPA different from a West Coast IPA?
Right. Very good question. So the New England IPAs are hazy, and it's a combination of the particular yeast strain and hops that are used, and in some cases adjuncts to make it hazy. And the West Coast IPA is just going to be a clear beer that's got typically the kind of 3 C's: hops, Citra, Cascade, Centennial.
Okay. I think my palate has evolved over the years, where I used to hop. The rap on hops is that they're bitter. When you say, it's double hopped, that used to make me nervous. As I taste this, there's very little bitterness. There's kind of a fruity undertone to it. Is that because of the hops? Is that
that's another great observation. Yes. So typically for the New England IPAs, they've got the hop flavor and aroma, but not necessarily the bitterness that you have in the West Coast IPA, and that's due to when the brewer adds the hop to the beer. So if we add a bunch of bitter hops to the kettle and boil them for a long time, it's going to extract more of the alpha acids, which give more bitterness to the beer. But if we put them in later in the whirlpool of the beer or as a dry hop, then it's going to add more of the aroma instead of the bitterness.
This is so good. So I'm about to finish it. I always say I don't like hoppy beers, but I feel like hoppy is used to mean bitter, maybe colloquially. How do you think that's true? And how do you think? What do you think I should say if I don't like bitter beers? Do I just say I don't like bitter beers?
Yeah, that's interesting point you make, because I remember trying to explain what a hoppy beer was, or even before I started getting into craft beer, somebody would tell me, it's that beer is hoppy. I'm like, I don't really know what a hop is, but yeah. So hops are a crop. They're in the hemp family, and they could have floral or citrus or tropical fruity character. Some have more of a earthiness or spiciness to them. But for the New England IPAs, we use ones that have kind of the tropical fruit flavor. And then, brewers will add them kind of later additions, dry hop additions that are going to give you a little bit of the flavor, a lot of the aroma, but not necessarily the bitterness.
Yeah, this doesn't taste like a 7% ABV beer either. I would destroy like 3 of, like, if you had poured me a full pint glass, it would be gone by now.
Ed, you mentioned earlier that you're not a sour guy either. What's your style?
My favorite beer that we brewed is one of our original 12, and it's a Vienna Lager. It's called Lumpy's Lager.
Okay.
It's named after a friend of mine and a bar that we worked at in college. And it's just a good representation of a German beer. Okay. It's got a lot of body to it. It's malty. It's very smooth. It's easy drinking. Goes great with pizza. Yeah. The acidity of marinara sauce on pizza sauce. I think Vienna Lager pairs well with pizza. It's just been my favorite beer since day one. It's still, after 200 plus beers, it's still right. It's still my favorit.
There you go.
That beer is reminiscent of some of the beers that I brewed at Baderbrau before. Okay, yeah. We brewed all lagers there.
Okay.
And we were kind of one of the 2 main lager breweries in Chicago, along with Metropolitan.
Yeah.
And this is long before Dovetail or Goldfinger were open. But then after I came here, I didn't want to just brew lagers anymore. Right. I wanted to do a bunch of other styles.
Nor did he want to just brew West Coast IPAs.
That's true. No, I get it. And all right, so you've got the 6. Now you have 6 other taps that you have to fill. And you mentioned the nice thing is the flexibility, and you could go. When you're picking what the other 6 taps are going to be, are you taking into account the 6 that are always on tap, or are you going completely independent? Because I know these 6, people want these 6, they're always staying. These 6, I can play a little more.
Yeah, it's a somewhat delicate balance. Yeah. In addition to the 6 that are always on tap, we also have had a white stout on tap.
Oh, okay.
Most all the time.
Here's another question that I'm sure everybody who's watching, who's not a brewer or owns a brewery, is probably going, well, stouts are dark. And that's because we've learned that you roast the malt. Is a white stout just with unroasted malt?
Yeah, so it's a pale looking beer, and ours is on a nitro tap.
Okay.
And so I'll use some flaked oats in the grist, as well as some caramel malt. And then I also use some cocoa powder and some vanilla beans.
Sounds
delicious. That's been a really good seller over the years too.
Nice.
But to kind of fill out the rest of that tap list, so I always want to have a sour on tap, and I always want to make sure there's a dark beer on tap. Okay. And there's going to be some seasonals and
one of the fun things Nathan does with our white stout is it's always on nitro, so it's a really smooth, creamy beer, really easy drinking, a lot of flavor. But we'll do some seasonal adjuncts to that beer, where we've done
Yeah, there's been cinnamon, coconuts.
Yeah, we've done
chili powder.
Yeah, we've done
Oh, that
probably
sounds
6 or 8 different flavor adjuncts to that beer. And Christmas we did like a really fun chocolatey peppermint. We did for Thanksgiving, I think we did something like a cinnamon churro, or we've done some fun flavors with that beer, just a couple barrels at a time.
What makes that beer such a good base to try all these different things?
Since it's not overly roasty, and it's not too flavorful. Yeah, it does allow these other spices and seasonings to be put in there.
Okay. Let's go to Broken Carabiner. We talked about it a little bit earlier, and we're going to, because this will lead into what Ed mentioned, and I was waiting till the end to talk about the name and the branding. But a Carabiner, obviously, people use them when they're rappelling or mountain climbing. So tell us about this beer again.
Yeah, so this beer here, I take a pale ale base, and then I add a ton of
The big
green tea to the beer, and it's also got Citra and Mosaic hops. And when you smell these, you can really smell kind of the tea aspect and the.
It smells like an orange. Is that what I'm getting?
Yep.
Very
that's
strongly.
from the hops. Yep.
Very it kicks you in the nose.
And it's got definitely a nice floral quality too.
There's some earthiness that goes along with the green tea too. That people who are green tea drinkers, they immediately get the aroma when they bring it up to their mouth, and they're like, "Wow, I do smell the green tea." That earthiness to a traditional green tea.
This tastes incredible. You can tell, it's
really good.
like there's an undercurrent of green tea in a beer, but really, it's really there. It's so good.
Thank you. Yeah, I've had to kind of adapt the recipe to the different brewing equipment it's been brewed on over the years, changing kind of when the green tea is put in, whether it's in the whirlpool, in the brew kettle, or just as a loose powder as a dry hop.
When I first had a pale ale, it was a West Coast pale ale from Weinhardt's back a long time ago. And it was, like we were talking about before, really, really hoppy. So what is a pale ale style? Because this, again, has those hop flavors and that hop presence, but without being like punch in your face.
Yeah, so interestingly, a pale ale style originally came from Britain or England.
Okay.
So the beers that are brewed over there are using English hops that are a lot more kind of floral and spicy qualities to them, instead of the typical American hop qualities that you're thinking of with citrus and tropical fruit flavor, stuff like that. So interestingly, I do have an English IPA on tap now that uses some of those hops.
Nice.
Like East Kent Goldings and Fugel.
What sets them apart, other than what you said about not having like some of the citrusy notes and things like that?
Yeah, so a little bit different yeast too, and that's mainly it.
Okay. All right, Ed, one of the things I noticed when I first heard of Ike Oak was your mascot, your branding, which is a bear. I have bear stuff all over my house. You would think that I was Grizzly Adams at some point. I love bears, and I always notice when somebody is using that. How did the bear become the brand for Ike Oak? What's the story behind this bear that looks like it's hugging a maple leaf?
So naming a business is hard.
Sure.
You get all these voices from family members, friends. I got this idea, nicknames, and it's tough. And Brian, who was one of the consultants from Folk Art, said, think of a story. Think of a family story, a family tradition. And so that's where it kind of went down this rabbit hole of family stories. And Ike Oak, Ike is a grizzly bear, and it is a family story from way back when my oldest son, whose 27th birthday is today.
Oh, happy birthday.
and him and I and my wife were camping out in West Yellowstone when he was 1 year old, and we had a bear encounter. And it was, tent camping, and we ran into Ike the bear, who was a local legend. And of course, my wife freaks out.
Sure.
We now are sleeping in the car, and then we're heading to the Best Western.
Yeah, we're getting a hotel.
And so that story was it was it traumatic? No. Was it a funny family story? Now fast forward 20 plus years, and that story now has turned into a really funny family story of the bear drank dad's beer, the bear stole mom's Cheetos, and, kind of turned into a funny story. But Ike's the grizzly bear, and the oak came from, it was in an oak grove. Okay. And that's how the story evolved. And when I was brainstorming and coming up with, what names work, I presented that name as an option to a branding company, and she created that logo, and I looked at it and I said, done. That's what I want. And so then we have all these so everything's centered around the bear. It's the oak leaf is the bear's belly. Right. And then we have a lot of other fun sub logos that kind of come off of that. Like this logo here is the actual reverse of of Ike's nose. So it looks like a drip coming down from a beer glass, but it's actually just the nose. So we put that on t-shirts and stuff like that.
There it is.
We have another sub logo. This one I think is
really model too, because there's
really
a different
cool
logo on the back.
Yeah, so that one is Ike the bear with the wood grain. And then this one I think is a really unique one that it has an oak leaf, it has a grain, it has a hop cone, and it also has an acorn on it. So that's also a really cool logo as well. So
it's very cool, and just some of the exposed wood around the place, and it all goes in. It gives me and it's funny that you mentioned Denver. It does give the Ike Oak logo does give me a very Rocky Mountain, the breweries out there, that kind of feel, and being in the woods and that kind of stuff.
For sure.
It's very nice. All right, so I'll ask you both before we go into our final four questions. What's next? You've been talking about the style the elusive, but do you have a style that's coming up next that you might want to pursue? Have you decided on one? Are you?
Yeah, so there's in my fermenter right now, there's a bitter. So it's kind of based on British pale ale. So it's an ordinary bitter. So for British bitter style beers, there's three classes of them. So there's the ordinary, which is kind of mid threes for the ABV, which is, low, right?
Low, very low.
And then there's a best bitter, which is more in the low fours for ABV. And then ESB, or extra special bitter, which is closer to 5% ABV. But I brewed a ESB several years ago. That was the one that was, I think, 4.9% when I made it. But the one that I'm going to release here in a couple of weeks is the ordinary bitter, which is only 3.6% ABV.
That's the name though is misleading. If people aren't familiar or haven't had one, it's not a bitter beer, which is how do you? I guess Ed, that might be a question for you. Nathan brews a beer that sounds like people are going to go, How do you go about training your bartenders to explain a beer that has an unfortunate name, because it's not really what it sells itself as.
I think training is important, teaching your staff they all don't have to be beer experts. Not everybody doesn't have to be, a craft beer fanatic, but I think allowing the bartenders and servers to taste the beer. Nathan's puts out we put out a tap list. We change our tap list about every week. Okay. He puts out an email with the description and some of the important facts of the beer, and the managers, they spend time, shift meetings, explaining, taste testing. Everybody gets a sample of it throughout the week when a new beer comes on. And I think it's just a matter of training your staff. Like, it's called a bitter because of this.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's bitter, to where people don't want to eat or drink it with a pizza or a burger.
Perfect.
So I think training's super important, and letting your staff taste your beer,
Yeah. Would be a
is
shame
really
if
important.
you're surrounded by it, and then you
Right,
can't even get to
right.
it. All right, it is time for the final four. We ask our brewers the same four questions at the end. Now we're going to ask Ed the same. All right, gentlemen, this is for you, for both of you. I'm going to start with you, Nathan, because you brew the hill you'll die on. So I know you've talked a lot about, Ed, what the customers like and stuff. Is there a beer, even if it's really popular, that maybe you just, no, I'm sorry. I can't go there.
Yeah, no. So to answer that question first, here at Ike Oak, we're a brewpub restaurant, and there's always 12 beers on tap, but we also sell cider from, from Irish cider.
Okay.
And we have some non-alcoholic beer from Go. And we got some seltzer, right? And we've got a full bar, including cocktails, right?
You got stuff for everybody.
And then
You've got some cocktails on tap,
craft
too.
soda, right? So if nobody wants to only drink the beer, there's plenty of other choices for them, right?
Of course.
But I know that I'm definitely never going to make or try to make a non-alcoholic beer here, because you actually need to have more equipment than you do to just make regular beer, because you need a way to remove the alcohol.
Yeah.
So whether that be using some kind of filtration or heating the beer after the alcohol is in there to remove it. So I'm not going to ever make a non-alcoholic beer.
That's a first. That's a first for that answer. Very interesting. Ed, is there a beer that you would, if Nathan came to you, you would say, yeah, this probably isn't for Ike Oak?
That's a good question, because I give Nathan pretty much full autonomy of the brew house. We talk about the brew schedule, and I throw some ideas at him and things like that. But I would say the one beer that I would say I would probably be like, do we really need it, would maybe be a triple IPA.
Okay.
I think, I just don't think as the business guy of the business, I don't think it pairs well with food.
Right.
Unless you're going to do some kind of really special, unique dish that it could, pair with. I think in general, what we offer on our food menu, a triple IPA doesn't match many of them. And I think we've brewed other beers that hit that higher IBU threshold. And I don't think we need to go much higher than what we've already done. Hop it differently, but I don't see a triple IPA being something we'd brew.
Yeah, I've talked to some other pub brewers that they really shy away from high ABV beers in general, just because they're going to be slow sellers.
Yeah.
But we've been fortunate here to have good enough traction in sales that everything pretty much is enjoyed by the consumers.
All right.
quickly.
Question number 2 is a beer that you brewed, and it might have been really popular. People clamored for it, but for whatever reason, maybe it was too difficult, maybe it gummed up the works, whatever. We're not bringing that one back, because you talked about bringing some beers back, but
yeah, that's a really good question. So I was making all kinds of different milkshake IPAs and hazy IPAs, back in 2020, 21.
like everybody,
yeah. So one of them that I made that I'm not going to make it again, it was named Woolly Yoo-Hoo. It was a chocolate milkshake IPA. So I put a ton of cocoa powder in the brew kettle. So my brother actually used to work for Blommer Chocolate, the big chocolate factory downtown that just closed within the past year. But so I had free reign on getting a bunch of chocolate to put in there, but it just something with the way that the chocolate character integrated with the hops. I'm sure some people liked it, right? But it didn't get that great a reception.
That's
overall.
never getting the, hey, we brewed this back in 2020, let's bring it back. Was there one, Ed, that you were hoping never comes back for whatever reason?
There was one that Nathan brewed, and it was, I think it was, you might remember it a little better, but I think it was our Vienna Lager that we flavored with peanut butter and jelly flavoring. Was that right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't good.
It wasn't good.
I think guests liked it, but it was, for me, that's my favorite beer,
That's
that
the-
Vienna
yeah.
Lager. And then we added peanut butter and jelly to it. And
If it ain't broke.
people thought it was funny, and it was, everybody tried it. We saw a lot of flights, so it was a beer that people would try in the flights, but it was
Sure.
kind of blasphemy for me that it was my, my personal favorite beer, but, it wasn't a
off the
bad
list.
seller. It wasn't a bad seller. It just was, wasn't
for
my
you,
thing.
right. All right, question number 3 for both of you, and it can be one of the beers here at Ike Oak, or it's something else, your go-to off-the-clock beer. Who wants to
Yeah,
go
so
first?
this is one that, I could probably find this beer at many bars around the world. And just give me a Guinness, just
Okay,
a good Guinness.
good
Yeah.
Guinness. How about you, Ed?
My two, I have a fridge stocked full of Ike and Oak beer, and so does all my neighbors and all my family members. But my go-to beers, if I had to go to the liquor store and buy, the first one would be a Coors Banquet in the stubby bottle.
Yep.
It's a great beer. It's a easy drinking beer, and drinking them out of the stubby bottles is pretty cool too. And then second would be a Guinness pub draft can.
Oh, okay.
The
Very nice.
the nitro can. That's probably my one of my.
It's amazing how close that tastes to the
my top 3 favorite
to
beers.
the draft when you use that nitro
smooth,
can.
easy drinking, low ABV.
Perfect.
Awesome beer. And I've been to the brewery, and it's as good. It's great at the brewery, but it's really good still in the can.
Yes, sure. Absolutely true. All right. This one, I think I might know the answer since you guys are known for your pizzas and stuff, but it could be anything. Your favorite beer and food pairing.
Yeah, so for me, hands down, it's our Ike and Oak Mount Massive, along with some of our pig wings. And so the pig wings are deep fried pork shanks.
Oh, wow.
With some buffalo sauce. So it's got some great complexity with the savoriness, along with the spiciness and the acid character from the buffalo sauce, along with the kind of tropical hoppy flavor and malty sweetness you get from the beer.
Yeah.
So it's
All
a
right.
combination I love.
Ed, Vienna Lager to pizza?
Mine would be, yeah, exactly right.
That sounds all right to me.
I would choose the Lumpy's Vienna Lager, and then I would also choose the one of our signature Neapolitan style pizzas called the Ike and Oak. It's a Neapolitan style thin crust. We make the dough in house. It's a cold fermented dough. Takes about 72 hours.
Wow.
To make. We use great ingredients for it, but it's a great pizza crust. And the uniqueness of the pizza is it has sliced sopressata salami on it. It has a blend of mozzarella and fontina cheese. And then it also has pickled jalapenos, which are one of my favorite kind of toppings for a pizza. And then we drizzle with a combination of our spicy beer mustard and spicy honey.
Oh, wow.
And those combination of the sweet and savory and the spicy, I think, is just phenomenal. And then it cools down with a sip of the Vienna Lager.
Vienna Lager, very good. Well, thank you both for being here. This has been great. Before we do our final toast, I do want to say thanks for joining us again on this edition of Crafty Brewers, Tales Behind Craft Beer. Be sure to support your local brewery, because without your support, times can be tough for some of your favorite breweries, so make sure you are out there. Buy things, tip the staff, drink the beer, spread the word, buy it, wear a t-shirt around, whatever you need to do. Crafty Brewers Tales Behind Craft Beer is produced by award-winning producer, and he has won awards. That's not just him pointing a gun at me to make me say it. He has won awards. Cody Goff is our producer. You can visit our website to browse our archive of over 40 episodes and get in touch with us at craftybrewerspod.com. Want to support the show? Yes, sure you do. Why not? Just leave us a comment on our YouTube video. Any comment will do. Brian and Cody are great. I can't believe you guys still talk about beer. I can't believe there's so much great beer in Chicago and the surrounding areas. There is. You should drink it. And then tell a friend about our show. That would be great. Thanks again to Ed Ranquist, the owner, and Nathan Tertell, the head brewer at Ike Oak Brewing, for joining us. Visit Ike Oak in Woodridge, Illinois, or go to ikeoakbrewing.com to get all the information. I'm Brian Noonan, and that brings us to a new segment. You guys are the first to do this, the final toast. So what would you like to toast today, Ed?
I would like to toast to all of our great staff and all of the regulars that we have at Ike Oak.
Very nice.
And I would like to toast to health, happiness, and prosperity.
Very nice. Cody the G.
I'd like to toast the 2 empty beers I inhaled and the 4 packs of each that I'm definitely going to go home with because they were really good.
Perfect. And I would like to toast everybody who watches the show, Ed and Nathan, and all the great brewers that we've talked to in the past and the ones we will talk to in the future. Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.